Hello and welcome to the special transmission on PTI government's three successful years in government. Today we are actually taking stock of what the government has done, what it had promised, and how it is promising to deliver in coming 2 years. Remember, yesterday also I actually pointed out that this is the first political party, first government that actually promised that and asked media to actually keep a check on its promises. Usually, otherwise, the past parties have not been able to actually remember their manifestos only 1 or 2 years down the lane when they were in government. But this government actually asked people to keep on holding it accountable. Then I just reported yesterday as well that Dawn group of publications, umpteen others, actually ran trackers on the promises that were made in manifesto. And very interestingly, while it was pointed out that in these 3 years, 2 promises were totally fulfilled, but 36 were the promises that had been, implementation on those promises had been started. And there were only 6 where any progress was still awaited. That is not all. The government of Pakistan has actually released a comprehensive 3-year all-round an assessment of what it has been doing. One aspect that is very important is poverty alleviation, and we have seen incredible strides in the SARS program. We are going to talk about these things and more. We are going to talk about the economic angle, we are going to talk about the political angle, and we especially are going to look at all these things in view of the COVID pandemic. Prime Minister of Pakistan today spoke to an audience in Islamabad, and there he actually pointed out that Pakistan was being praised for A, its COVID response, B, how effectively it actually intervened and provided people with the social, breathing space, economic breathing space. And then he also pointed out that the government is committed to all its missions. We are going to talk about all these matters, and in order to help us understand these issues, we are joined by an eminent panel. Although we are going to show you a report later in the program as well, but before that, let me introduce the guest in the studio. I have with me on Abbas Bappi Saab, who is a senator of Pakistan Tehreek-e-Insaf, the ruling party. Thank you very much, sir, for being part of the program. Next to him is Shakil Ahmed Rame Saab. He is a veritable expert on all economic matters, especially these days he focuses a lot on CPEC and has become an authority on that too. But today he is here as an economic analyst. Thank you very much, sir, for being part of the program as well. We will be, I'm not sure that the third guest has joined us. Right, Dr. Rana Jawad Asghar is an expert on various issues regarding COVID. He joins us. He is a medical doctor, medical practitioner. Dr. Saab, thank you very much, sir, for being part of the program as well. Let me start with Senator on Abbas. Sir, what are the nodal points that your government is really proud of, and you can actually talk about them?
Thank you so much for having me on the show. First of all, I personally believe that today's address of the Prime Minister was not an address of a Prime Minister of a country. It was more of a leadership sort of state, which probably the nation was listening to in a way that reminded me of the days when we were having those election campaign in those days. So keeping his promises true to the nation was something we were really looking after. So completing the 3 years and talking to the nation in a way which he spoke today for 1.5 or 2 hours today, really it gave me goosebumps to myself. And I was alhamdulillah, I was thanking God for it, that we got this opportunity to serve our nation. So the main points that we were listening to which I understood from the address of the Prime Minister today, if we start one by one, first was the promise of a social welfare state.
Yeah.
See, this is where we had the promise with the nation that we'll take our country to the level where all the developed countries are right now. So he spoke about the health cards. You know, one of the great points we had, health card for KPK. 40 million people of the KPK are having health cards with a facility of 1 million rupees.
Right.
We have started this health card in Punjab, in Dera Ghazi Khan Division and Sahiwal Division. So this is one of the things he spoke about. The next thing which he talked about was the Asas emergency cash. As he spoke, that when the whole of the world, the globe was facing this pandemic, Pakistan being the developing country still stood up to this pandemic and helped his people with 144 billion rupees to around 12 million people, 120 million people with 12,000 rupees. That was really something very remarkable, and we should be boasting about it. Moving on to was the agriculture part, which I think is the second most important part. This year we saw increase in the production of the 4 major crops, naming wheat, maize, rice and sugarcane, 8 to 12% on most of the major crops. And the best part was the price support system which this government provided. I mean, just talk about the wheat. Raising the price from 1,400 rupees per mon to 1,800 rupees per mon was one of the pinnacles of this scheme. And with having 27 million tons of wheat this year, we felt that at least 1,100 billion rupees in all the 4 crops went to the agriculturist, which really boosted the purchasing power of the agriculturists, which makes almost 60% of the employment.
I'm glad that you have actually pointed out about agriculture. There are 2 promises that still we are awaiting, right? One about the middleman and how he keeps on actually making profit out of everything. I understand Kisan card is important, but still a lot needs to be done. The second thing is, while there were bumper crops, Pakistan still has to import. Why?
See, remember that Pakistan is an economy who is stuck with the mafias, and there's a mafia everywhere. Middlemen is one of those mafias you're talking about. We have sugar mafias, we have oil mafias, and we have middlemen too. Getting rid of it, it's not an easy task. So what we did, we're going to build some strategic reserves. Now this year we have 27 million tons, which is exactly what we need in Pakistan. Government is holding in Punjab 4 million tons of wheat right now, and people have enough food to cover for this whole year. But we thought in October, when there will be a pressure on the wheat stocks, government should be having another strategic reserves of 2 million tons. So the middleman who is hoarding right now, we estimate around 1.2 million tons are being hoarded by middlemen. He won't be able to inflate the price. So keep the checks on the middlemen. We're going to build up those strategic reserves. Number one. Number two, we wanted to have a system where actually middlemen don't have the system. So we're going to build silos. You know, those storages, 900 storages being built, almost in the process of being built in Punjab right now, where we'll be keeping all the major agriculture crops, so the middleman does not roll and hold these crops. And apart from that, Agriculture Bank, Prime Minister has pushed Agriculture Bank to the limits to start giving loans to the people who do not own the large chunks of land. So when they have enough money, they can store their own crop and sell it at the time when they want to sell it, rather sell it to the middleman who actually has the finance to pick it up at the time when he needs the money, and then just stores it and keeps it for the price to go up. So this is a very large process, and reforms do not really occur overnight.
Although in 3 years you have actually made a lot of strides, but right now you have given me a lot to actually go on. Let me go to Shakil Rame Saab. Shakil Rame Saab, one aspect that you and I have been discussing in various programs is about data. It seems that in Pakistan, data collection was a problem. For 20 years, Pakistan didn't have a census, then we got a census, it became controversial. Now, thanks to the Asas program, because of the poverty numbers, then also the Kisan card regarding agriculture sector, and health card, medical sector as well, especially consumption and needs of people. The government seems to be actually creating a lot of data that might be useful in targeted interventions. What do you say on that?
Look, Pitafi, on the poverty data, you are specifically talking about the concept of the Asas. We have a lot of data in the form of Nadra. Because we're doing it for so many years. For 2 or 3 decades, we are implementing a Nadra project.
Nadra knows how much you make and how much you collect? How much you
Everybody goes there for the, you can say, for the ID card. National Identity card.
That is true.
And
the other location, right?
From location, everything is there in the family tree. In the
family tree might be.
There is but the good point is that they have created data for the poverty and the Asas. That is a good strategy. But the thing is, how they will use that data? That will be the real, I think, the real question we have to wait for.
Okay.
Right now, they are collecting the data. If they are just using like the data we have created through the PBS or some other forums, just to keep it with the government, or just to manipulate in the favor of the government.
Okay.
So then we have to wait. So what would be the validity of that data?
No, I totally get your concern. And it has been a debate not only in Pakistan, all over the world, especially the developed world. But when you look at the execution of Asas emergency cash, when you look at targeted interventions, right from Bukhana Soy, right, to various other interventions, there seems to be a very boisterous approach to actually providing relief to the common man.
No, you are right. They provided the relief. But only just to say that if they have the data, everything would be solved.
Right.
That would be another case.
Right.
There is excellent execution of this relief program during the COVID-19. There is no second thought. And that distribution of resources according to the need and to the poor created one very good opportunity through the consumption for the local market. That's why we have seen that our GDP growth was more than what we were expecting.
Okay.
Because we have given the money to the people and they contributed in the consumption. Basically,
Are you saying that our growth is driven by consumption only?
Yes, it is consumption. If somebody is saying like that, for example, with a very with apology, look, we're talking about the increase in the production of crop, but we're not telling this increase is due to the increase in the production area. It is not due to productivity. One thing, second thing.
No, hang on. Is that a bad thing?
Yes, because we're not increase it bad thing. Why? Listen. It is bad thing. Why? Because we have to decrease the crop area for the cotton, and the production of cotton has decreased many times, manifold.
Okay.
So because you are sacrificing one crop for another crop, that means you are not making any progress. That means then for the cotton, you have to export the cotton. Your import bill have to start to rise. Even for the July, our import bill has been increased again. There are two reasons for that. That's why we are just showing like that crop production has been increased, but we are not telling where it impacted the agriculture in other
and we are going to talk about the current account deficit also. There are various other aspects. But the key point was data and how it is used. Would you agree with me, in the past, when the government of Pakistan did not know before the census how many are we, between the presidency and Prime Minister's office, 2 crore would actually disappear, right? At that time, if government was introducing any kind of relief, there was no data to compare to it.
There is no second opinion about the importance of data.
Right.
But we have to see how the plans are executed.
Okay.
So how the government will execute the plans. That we have to see. What I'm saying.
With your permission, let me bring in Dr. Rana Jawad Oscar Saab. Dr. Saab, at the start, when I was introducing you, I pointed out that you are an expert on medicine and COVID also, but you are also a prolific writer and you can actually talk about broader aspects as well. So I'm not actually going to create silos in which everyone speaks a different response to various other things or different things. Let me ask you about certain aspects that were pointed out by Senator regarding Pakistan's healthcare sector. First, respond to that. And then we are going to, of course, talk about how the government of Pakistan responded to COVID-19 as well. Please go ahead, sir.
Thank you for inviting. Yes, the broader healthcare reforms is also one of my favorite topics, and I have written on it also. And the problems are long-seated and difficult to challenge. So when the new government came, my personal hope was, because very soon the health sector was led by a very well accomplished public health professional, and now the second minister, who is another infectious disease expert, Dr. Faisal Sultan. So I think my expectations were more, and I wanted more on a preventive care than the curative care. And if we look at our health budgets successively over the years, the majority of the chunk always goes to the salaries and then to the major hospitals or the clinical services. And we always then left with very little amount for preventive services. And a country like Pakistan, with a population of more than 200 million, cannot afford to provide health care to all its citizens. I know I'm well aware of the health card and everything, which is, I think, an excellent step to a good cause and to help the poor. But the important point is that if we do not stop people getting sick, no amount of resources in any country can afford to pay for the health services. And I think that's now, after COVID-19, that lesson has been learnt across the governments. Not that much what I want to see, but that's one of the good steps, I think, where preventive care is getting its due importance. And now coming back to COVID-19, because I was also...
With your permission, I have many questions for you. I'm just told that we have to take a small break. When I come back, I'm going to come straight back to you, sir, and we are going to resume this discussion. We will take a break. When we come back, we are going to resume the discussion. Take a break. Welcome back. Before going to the break, we were talking about government's performance. We are going to actually resume the discussion right from there. But before that, our team has prepared a package for you. Let us first watch it. As I told you earlier, let us watch it, and then we are going to resume the discussion.
After the completion of 3 years in office, Prime Minister Imran Khan highlighted the key achievements of his government, including marking a journey of a stable economy and several other development and welfare projects at the Jinnah Convention Centre in Islamabad. The Ministry of Information and Broadcasting issued a 255-page 3 years performance report, which gives valuable insight into the efforts of each ministry and division that are facilitating the common man to achieve the vision of Naya Pakistan. Besides defining the baseline of each sector, it also focused on the key objectives, initiatives, planning, strategies, legislative policy framework, and the projects in the pipeline. The PTI-led government faced various inherited challenges, including financial stability, poverty, inappropriate education system, and inadequate health facilities. However, during PTI's 3 years, the struggle to achieve set goals could be seen despite sustaining the COVID-19 pandemic through the smart lockdown strategy. Pakistan has recently been ranked by The Economist as the third best performing country for handling the pandemic. The administration of nearly 30 million vaccines across the country and self-sufficiency in manufacturing of personal protection equipment are also key achievements for the government. To uplift the living standard of the common man, the PTI-led government had launched projects like Naya Pakistan Housing Program for affordable accommodation to low-income groups, Ehsaas Program for social security, and the Kamyab Jawan Program for imparting skills to the youth, which would help them get employment in the future. The report mentions the establishment of National Command and Operations Center, which has helped to formulate a coherent response against the novel coronavirus. The 3-year performance report is available for public information at the official website of Directorate of Electronic Media and Publication.
Right, you have seen the assessment of what was said today. Before I actually come back to the studio, I had told Dr. Rana Jawad Asghar that I am coming back to him. Dr. Saab, you were about to actually talk about the COVID-19 situation. Before that, you were also mentioning how much of our budget actually goes to healthcare and there to salaries. Can you actually point out that when you are talking about that, you are talking about the ratio of GDP, or you are talking about merely the federal government's budget? Because if I understand correctly, it is primarily a provincial subject. Right, Dr. Saab?
Yes. Actually, what I was talking about was the overall, our health expenditure. It doesn't matter if it is at the federal level or the provincial level. The trend is the same, and the way the money is distributed is pretty much the same. And also, we all of us know that majority of the expense, health-related expense, was out-of-pocket expenses, which I think with this Sehat card, our relief will be given to the people. Coming back to the COVID-19 situation, right now, though we are going through a very dangerous phase of Delta variant, but I want to use this moment because you are looking at the past highlights of the work. So I think that what helped in Pakistan was that we started very early on COVID-19. I remember on 15th January, we first had a discussion on COVID-19 for Pakistan, when it was only in three countries outside China, with very few cases all related to travel. But we started working on it very early, and by 22nd of January, we already had the core committee for coronavirus for Pakistan, and I was part of it as an advisor on communicable diseases on that. And from that, the good thing was that we were trying to shore up our defenses all over Pakistan. Not everything which was required we were able to do it. But by the 26th February, when the first came to Pakistan, we were already, if I don't say running, at least we were walking. So it was, better managed than many other countries. The second point was that today the Prime Minister also mentioned the issue of not going to a massive lockdown, which many countries did. And this decision was very, let's say, unpopular decision from a technical point of view. And I remember we were just few of us who actually did a math on that. and come up with calculations which were against everyone else's calculations or projection models, in which we were able to see that yes, the disease is serious, but it's not going to be doomsday scenario for Pakistan. And we were also fully aware of the the daily plight of our daily laborers who buy the things in small sachets, like 2 toasts of double roti or bread, you could say. Not many people know that those big brands sell in 2 toast packing of those same bread which you and I buy from the markets. Not many people know that the tea and the ghee and everything else, the local commodities are sold on such a small sachet by the same branded companies in the same packages, which shows that the most people in our part of the world or in our country were buying it on a daily basis. So that was a very important point when we made a
Dr.
case.
Saab, it is a very important point, and one has to actually compliment the government. At that time, many of us were not seeing that reality, but the Prime Minister always kept on looking at the most vulnerable in the economy compared to us, with the exception of China. In our neighborhood, right from India to Afghanistan to Iran, it has been bedlam the way the economy and COVID were handled during this time. But you want to actually respond to 2 critiques. One, he talked about how the agricultural surplus might be increasing because of the land that is cultivated, not the yield. And then, of course, Dr. Saab also pointed out certain things about healthcare.
I'll start with the complimenting the doctor,
Yeah.
and then I'll come to the...
Please go ahead.
As he rightly said, when the COVID came last year, it was such an easy decision for us, the people like us, to go for a lockdown.
Yeah.
And, all the people, major core committee in our party and the government pressurized the Prime Minister to go for the lockdown. And he would have easily done it, because, people sitting in Islamabad who are getting their salaries, like MNA, the senators or the bureaucrats, they're not the ones who will be affected by the decisions.
Right.
But trust me, at that time when Prime Minister decided, no, I will not go for a lockdown, but I'll go for a smart lockdown, because he was thinking about the poor, poverty and all those indicators, thought, I may not see the people dying from the COVID, but I might see people losing their livelihoods. So he took a decision which today we can really boast about it. We have been rated as number 3rd in the world with a number of 84.4% out of 100 after New Zealand and Hong Kong, who had fought well with the pandemic. And today we can also boast about that 50 million jabs have been all people have been vaccinated in Pakistan, first and the second jabs both, and we have enough stocks of 78 million lying in Pakistan to make 50% of the population to vaccinate that. So Alhamdulillah, we're on a very right track, and it's entirely because of Allah and then the Prime Minister's vision that we are saying today. Now the second point which the honorable colleague said,
Yeah, actually he also pointed out about how our healthcare sector is organized.
Yeah.
And how most of the healthcare budget actually goes to salaries rather than capacity building.
This is something we really inherited. We're trying to rectify it, but health cards probably is one of the things we think can give us breathing space to the public sector, because it emphasizes more on the private sector.
Right.
Health card gives you 1 million cash you can spend on your treatment in a private sector hospital. So we're building a private sector hospital whilst trying to manage the public sector hospital too. So that we cannot really get away with this thing, but building the private sector may try to help that pressure on the public sector hospitals.
And that was the core point, because health card actually can take care of people's finances.
Yeah.
But in order to for them to get good health care, they have to have hospitals.
Yes.
It might be in the urban centers, but in the rural centers, there is always dearth of health care, especially the hospital, not only public, private also.
Yes, Pitafi, that's what I'm trying to say. Health card most works for the private sector hospitals. You
but
can
hospital
use
has to be there.
Yeah, see, so when the health card comes, people will start building their hospitals too. It's like a system, a chicken and egg sort of system over there. So if the health card is there, people will start building hospitals. Now I know at least 3 hospitals, Ahmedpur Shirkia, in Bahawalpur. They said we want to get enlist on health card, so they started building the system according to the health card system. You know, the laboratories, they want to have it, they want to have analytical, they want to have pharmacists. You know, so all those skills which are required to be on the health card, once the private sector hospital, they'll just build it up. That's where the chicken egg situation is coming up. Number one. Number two, as the honorable gentleman said, yes, we believe the cotton land, the cultivation for cotton has been going down. This is not because we asked for it, because people thought it is not profitable. Remember that. In agriculture, it's not the government who decides who goes for it. So I agree what he said, that probably the production of the major crops went up because of the cotton going down, but not entirely because of it. There were other issues as well. Shortage of water in the Bahawalnagar division was one of the issues we faced. The rate prices of the cotton going down was another issue. But this year, from 6 million bales of cotton bales, which were produced in 2021, we're foreseeing another 10 million bales, total 10 million bales in 22, but will not affect the major production of other 4 crops as well. That's not going to happen. That is because the farmer is getting a good price. So if he gets 1,800 rupees for wheat, he'll go for the wheat. If he gets 1,600 rupees plus minus on the rice, he'll go for it. He gets 300 of sugar cane, he gets 1,300 for maize. That is a push which a farmer needs to go and cultivate that crop. So that's where the government comes in.
And very quickly, because so far you were responding to them, can you also reflect on the education sector?
Yes, we have built around 80 more colleges in Punjab. So as you know, after the 18th Amendment, most of the education goes in, but the major thing the federal government has done is the one unanimous curriculum for all of Pakistan. You remember Pakistan, the Prime Minister has been saying this thing, I want only one Pakistan for everybody. You can't have rich people going to English medium schools and the poor going to Urdu medium schools, and when they all go for a job, there's a huge difference in interview, because I speak English, I'll get the job, and you may not speak English, you won't get a job. That's where the difference lies. He wanted actually the same unanimous curriculum for everyone. So up till primary, we have the same curriculum for everyone, regardless of poor and rich, regardless of private and public sector schools. That is one of the things we can boast about, number one. Number two, building more colleges in Punjab. They have upgraded 900 more colleges in Punjab, which is a very good thing. We've given SAS scholarship last year. 50,000 scholarship has been given to the undergrads, not to the masters and MSc and MPhils. 50,000. This year, we're bound to cross 100,000 more scholarships. So small petty things, but when it all piles up, probably it'll have a good education reforms, and inshallah the vision which Prime Minister foresees will be completed in this way.
The issue of school dropouts is quite serious, right? So perhaps focusing on the primary level education is also very important. But let me go back to Shakil Rame Sahab. Sir, you have listened to the responses, and of course there's an element of education. Pakistan is seeing a lot of opportunities in the region, right from CPAC to Afghanistan and elsewhere. But usually when you talk about our workforce, we are not that kind of trained. Perhaps there is a dearth of knowledge or experience as well. Do you think that the government's focus on academic solutions will be enough, or there's need for more?
So for the skill development, we need more. Even for the education, first of all, we have to train the teachers. Right now, what we are having the quality of teachers at all levels, not only for the schools, even for the university level. What we are giving them, just we're asking them to, in the university, just asking them students to produce the thesis on the basis of secondary data or on the basis of secondary research. We are not infusing any type.
There is an elite bias. You always go up. I want to come down.
I'm coming down.
University is okay. You can fix them later. But at this moment, the issue is primary level and technical.
If you allow me, I can do it.
But I have to actually.
If you don't allow me, I cannot.
No, but I'll have to request you to focus on these issues.
Because we have to work in a comprehensive way. Immediate solution will come from the higher education. Long-term solution will come from if you start with the primary education. From the primary education, what we are doing, because we are not teaching the skills. We are just giving them few lessons. It is not a fault of the PTF government. This is happening for the last 73 years. We are not focusing on the skill development. We are just focusing on just to teach them some Urdu or some English or some other books. And we have made the criteria, somebody speaks English good, he is an excellent guy. Or he is a wonderful person. That is not the case. We have to train the people, skill are the prime. From the very beginning.
Language is also a skill.
Language skill, but for what? Either you are going to produce everybody interpreter, Or you just want to create, everybody is talking, giving a good speeches? No.
Call centers?
Call centers is very
Service
important.
industry?
We are talking about skill development.
Okay.
Comprehensive. Starting from there to teach them to do the work. The first thing we can teach them, the children at the school level, we should inculcate this habit to do work with your own hand. Because that is very fundamental thing. Our children, especially in the cities they are living, they are used to the maids and everybody drivers, they are working for them. That we have to teach them. They have to learn, because when they come.
Do you have any statistical, data to tell me how many of Pakistanis have access to maids in their houses?
No, it is not only on the cities. If you look at that at the ground level, either we're telling the students or the kids to work with your own hand, no, at the school level. We're not telling them. Everybody is running to the private school right now. What is happening now?
Right.
This attitude, when we come to at the higher level, even our engineers know they are looking for the white collar job. Although the degree is basically a blue collar job, even our agriculture graduates from the University of Agriculture from all over the Pakistan, you tell me how many of those graduates are going to the agriculture? They are looking for the white collar jobs. This attitude to learn to work is very fundamental thing if we want to develop the skills, and we want to bring those people in the field. If you look at the statistics of, I was just talking to the Vice Chancellor of Faisalabad Agriculture University. I was asking him, is there any data? So we can calculate how many students from the agriculture field, from agronomy, from entomology, from their sectors, they are working in agriculture. We don't have data.
Okay.
If you find in Islamabad, I know hundreds of the people who are agronomists, but they are working in the NGOs as a white collar job.
That's a very good point. And one particular aspect about training the trainers, that actually resonates with everybody. We have seen during the COVID-19, everything was shut down. The schools were. And you had to actually go online for education, and nobody among the teachers had that kind of capacity to actually communicate to the students, and that became a problem. How much will the government need to focus on this aspect, from schools to vocational training to higher education?
Look, we have to put all our horses toward that. Because if we are able to provide the quality education, we will create the quality human capital. That is a prerequisite for any economy. One thing, and second thing, we have the opportunity. Right now, the Chinese government have given us $1.16 billion for the skill development in Pakistan. So we have the money. Always say we don't have the money because due to the debt crisis in the Pakistan. You know, last year we have taken a $14.3 billion.
Where is this money actually going to? TEFTA or elsewhere?
TEFTA.
Okay.
TEFTA and other training institutions of Pakistan. And we have that huge money. If we plan well and we correlate it to the Kamja program, we can do the miracles. If they are doing the like in silos, like Asad program is different program, Kanda program is different program, and this skill development is different. If they can create a link as a coordination, we can do miracle with this in especially for the skill development through the vocational training. I'm not talking about education, skill development, because this is money is for the skill development. So we can do it.
Yeah.
One thing,
I have to actually move on. I have to go to the other guest as well.
Sure.
Dr. Saab, let me come back to you, and let me ask you about the education in your sector as well. There is this perception in Pakistan that academic standards across board are declining. Do you actually agree with that, or you are going to actually find an exception to this rule in your sector?
I don't think so, and I think it's what we were studying many years back. Our children are now studying much more than that at the same level. So I don't say that education standards are going down, but one thing is certainly has changed. When I was in school and college, going to a private school or college meant, with some exceptions, that you couldn't make it to a government school or the government college, because these were considered top of the line, or only who couldn't get into those schools used to go to the private colleges or private schools. And I think the reason, major reason I could find out was that when our class fellows were sons and daughters the political leadership, the judiciary, the armed forces. Everyone was sending their kid to the same government school, and everyone had a stake to make sure that this school has the resources it required, and that resulted in a good government school systems and a good government college system. And remember, these private schools is a very new phenomena. And just linking it with
I'm just interjecting very quickly, just so that you can recollect this as well. When you used to go to a public school, what was the strength of a class? How many children used to be in a class? Because at this moment, because of population growth, it seems to be imploding, the classes are. Please, can you tell us about that also?
I was going to government public schools, which were considered at that time top of the line. So our class was around 30 plus minus students in different classes. And the issue of population yes, and the population explosion is a major factor which will, I think, is affecting not only the health sector but also the education sector and all the poverty index and all things. So this is like another root cause which we need to address. And I raised this to one government minister, and I said, no matter how you open 10 new hospitals, if the population number is increasing and even the diseases are not increasing, you cannot provide beds to the people who need that if we didn't control the influx of the numbers. And similarly, if we keep spending on curative care and do not support our preventive care and invest on it, then no country can afford to provide health care. And the biggest example is US, which spends highest per capita on health care, but because its majority is curative, it's in the health indicators it comes much lower, even to the Cuba, which is the poorest country and actually has much higher health indicators because their focus is on preventive care.
Before I come back to the studio, very quickly, let me ask you another thing. You're a doctor. To me, you actually can reflect on most of these policies. What is wrong with our population control policy? And I'm not merely talking about the current government, I'm talking about the governments over time. Very quickly, sir. Dr. Saab, can you hear me?
Yes. Sorry, I thought you were asking it to the studio.
No.
I think the problem is that we are not taking it seriously. We do not realize what a major, explosive problem that is. And still, because for the political reasons, no government, and I'm not saying one government, no government in successive years has been able to, take it up front and say, this is our problem and we have to deal with it. And, you deal with it.
That's a very good answer, sir.
But deal with it.
That's a very good answer. Let me come back to Senator Saab. I'm told that we are actually running out of time as well, but I have I'm going to include two questions here very quickly. One, population. According to our research, in every district, there is shortage of, population control or population policy officials. There's a shortfall of 50%. And then you can talk about macro indicators as well. Very quickly, you're going to conclude actually.
The population has been a problem for Pakistan for a very long time.
Yeah.
What we try to do is, because after the 18th Amendment, majority of the issues lies with the provincial governments. We being in Punjab, focusing on, I spoke to Dr. Yasmin last week on the population thing. She was very much focused on it, and government is working on it. There are two things we're working on. Number one is the policy, and number two is the main things, the pills and everything which are supposed to have in those things.
Yeah.
Yes, there has been a major lack of infrastructure in the issues that we have. We're not much having money in that field, because
despite it being devolved to the provinces.
Yes, because we're focusing on the health cards right now. We wanted to have prepared a bit of money on that sector, and we wanted to develop the health sector both at the same time.
Are you going to have a population card as well?
No, we won't. We'll have a Kisan card, inshallah, but in the health card. But thing is, this is something which needs to be discussed with the Punjab government, and federal government is not really focused on that one. So I have least.
Yeah, but the federal government will have to push at least the parties governments which are within your party's reach, right?
Dr. Yasmin, when I spoke to Law, she said
She
we
is
are focused
brilliant.
on it, and you'll see a change is coming up soon in the health sector.
Let
There's
us-
one, yes, economic terms which you lost in, I just want to include. It's good, we need to know that Pakistan's had a $300 billion economy right now, which is one of probably at 46th in the world. I'm sure Ramesh Ahmed agreed to it. We have the highest
You might not, but we don't have the time for it.
We have the highest
Perfect.
reserves ever in the history, standing at $24 billion. We
I just want to say one thing.
$2.5 billion worth of
Only one thing.
Right now, I'm just
things are going in the right
China is
direction,
allowed.
Alhamdulillah.
But you want to say very
One
quickly,
thing,
sir.
government should not go for the privatization. That will be a key for the success.
You cannot drop such a bomb at the very end of the program.
You capture your data, but that is a solution for them.
Okay, but that is a debatable issue. At this moment, I'm told that we have run out of time. Shakil Rameh sir, thank you very much, sir, for your precious time. On Abbas Bapi sir, thank you very much, sir, for your precious time as well. Dr. Rana Jawad Asghar sir, always great having you in the show as well. Viewers, this was today's discussion. Our coverage will continue, but for me and my panel, this actually brings us to the conclusion of transmission. Take care.